In the night sky, before telescopes and satellites, humanity looked up and saw God staring back. Seven luminous wanderers moved across the darkness. Unlike the countless fixed stars, they were alive, unpredictable, radiant, and terrifying. To the ancients, these weren't mere celestial bodies. They were rulers, each one a cosmic intelligence that governed every aspect of human life, from birth to death, from emotion to destiny. But why seven? Why did civilizations across the world, Egyptian, Babylonian, Greek, Roman, Hindu, and Hermetic, all agree that exactly seven heavenly powers held sway over human existence? Could it be a coincidence? Or did they all inherit fragments of a deeper, universal knowledge that modern science has forgotten? The ancients believed that each planet radiated a spiritual frequency, a vibration that echoed through the universe and shaped all things on Earth. Saturn, the slow and distant sentinel, ruled over time, fate, and death. Jupiter, bright and benevolent, governed law, wisdom, and expansion. Mars burned with the fire of war and desire. The sun embodied the soul's illumination. Venus whispered of love and beauty. Mercury carried the current of intellect and speech, and the moon closest to Earth was the mirror of emotion and the tides of life itself. To them, the planets were not out there in space. They were within us. The cosmos was a vast mirror, and human consciousness was its reflection. Every mood, decision, and event was seen as part of this celestial rhythm. The movement of the planets wasn't just astronomy, it was psychology, theology, and destiny intertwined. In this video, we will journey through the forgotten wisdom of the seven classical planets, their hidden meanings, their influence on the human spirit, and the secret reason why ancient empires aligned their temples, calendars, and even their laws to their celestial cycles. Because once you understand the seven planetary forces, you begin to see the invisible machinery of reality itself, the clockwork of divine intelligence turning behind the veil of the visible world. Long before the rise of modern astronomy, when the night sky was still a living temple, ancient peoples believed the heavens were alive with consciousness. To them, the stars were not distant balls of fire, they were divine intelligences, each moving in harmony with a cosmic order that shaped the destiny of all beings. Among the countless lights above, seven stood apart. They wandered across the heavens, their movements unpredictable, their glow distinct. These were the planetae, the wanderers from which we derive the word planet. Every ancient civilization knew of them: the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Though separated by geography, they each reached the same conclusion. The universe was ruled by these seven celestial powers. From the temples of Babylon to the ziggurats of Sumer, from the stone observatories of Egypt to the marble altars of Greece, humanity watched their journeys with reverence and fear. In Mesopotamia, the oldest star priests charted the movement of the seven to predict not only eclipses, but the fate of kings. They believed that Saturn, called Ninib, was the stern judge of time. Jupiter, or Marduk, was the lawgiver and protector. Mars, Nergal, embodied war and destruction. The sun was Shamash, dispenser of light and justice. Venus, Inanna, the goddess of love and fertility. Mercury, Nabu, the messenger of wisdom, and the moon Sin, the eternal reflector of human emotion. In Egypt, the same cosmic drama played out under different names. The sun was Rai, the divine heart of creation. The moon reflected the mysteries of Thoth. Venus was Hathor, the radiant mother of beauty. Mars became Horus the Avenger, Jupiter, Amun the great king, Mercury the eloquent Hermes, and Saturn, the dark god of the boundary, Set. These deities were not separate. They were different masks worn by the same seven archetypal forces. The Greeks later wove these celestial archetypes into their philosophy, refining them into the foundation of what would become Western cosmology. In their model, the cosmos was composed of concentric spheres, each ruled by one of the seven planets, each resonating with a specific frequency of divine intelligence. From the slow, cold sphere of Saturn to the swift and mercurial orbit closest to Earth, the ancients saw the planets as stages in the soul's descent from spirit into matter. This concept, known as the Great Chain of Being, suggested that everything in the universe was connected through these seven harmonies. To live well, the philosophers said, one must align one's soul with the planetary order. Harmony above meant harmony within. The Hermeticists of Egypt and Alexandria took this idea further. They taught that the seven planets were the keys to transformation, the gates the soul must pass through after death to return to the divine source. Each planet corresponded to a virtue or vice, a level of consciousness to be purified. The soul that had mastered the seven planetary powers could transcend the material world entirely and merge again with the One. Even religions that later rejected astrology could not escape its shadow. The 7 days of the week, each named after a planet, remain a living relic of this ancient cosmology. Sunday for the sun, Monday for the moon, Tuesday for Mars, Wednesday for Mercury, Thursday for Jupiter, Friday for Venus, and Saturday for Saturn. Every time you glance at a calendar, you are looking at the faded map of an invisible empire that once ruled the entire world. So when we speak of the seven planets, we are not speaking of astronomy alone. We are speaking of a metaphysical language that unified science, spirituality, and psychology. A language that taught humanity that the cosmos is not something separate from us, but something alive within us. In the next section, we will explore the core explanation, Part 1, the deeper meaning behind each of the seven planetary forces, how they shaped human destiny, and why every ancient initiate sought to master their energies. To the untrained eye, the planets were merely bright dots gliding across the heavens. But to the ancient initiate, they were living intelligences, archetypal forces woven into the structure of reality itself. The ancients believed that each planet was not only a celestial body, but also a mirror of a psychological, spiritual, and physical principle within human nature. Understanding them meant understanding the entire mechanism of existence. Let us begin our descent, or rather, our ascent, through these seven cosmic gates. 1. Saturn, the gatekeeper of time and fate. In every ancient mystery school, Saturn stood at the outermost boundary of the visible cosmos. It was the slowest, the dimmest, and therefore the most feared. The ancients saw it as the guardian of endings, the ruler of limitation, and the keeper of karmic law. Saturn teaches through suffering. It represents the principle of contraction, the force that gives form to chaos, but also imprisons life in rigid patterns. Every boundary, every rule, every responsibility is Saturn's domain. In Hermetic philosophy, Saturn corresponds to lead, the heaviest metal, symbolizing the weight of mortality. Yet within this lead lies the potential for gold. For the initiate, to face Saturn is to face one's own shadow, to accept the inevitability of time, and through that acceptance, to transcend it. That is why Saturn was never truly evil. It was stern, yes, but necessary. Without Saturn, nothing would endure. Without limits, creation would dissolve back into formlessness. 2. Jupiter, the king of harmony and expansion. If Saturn builds walls, Jupiter builds empires. Associated with Zeus, the father of gods, Jupiter symbolizes order, justice, and abundance. His light is warm and protective, a cosmic benevolence that nurtures life and civilization. In astrology and ancient theology alike, Jupiter ruled the principle of expansion, wisdom, generosity, faith, and philosophy. He is the bridge between matter and spirit, the understanding that law, when rooted in wisdom, leads to freedom, not bondage. The priests of Babylon saw Jupiter's motion as a favorable omen for kings and scholars. The Greeks called him the embodiment of divine reason, Logos. The Romans worshipped him as Jupiter Optimus Maximus, the best and greatest. But even Jupiter's gift has a shadow, excess. Too much abundance becomes greed, too much faith becomes arrogance. Thus, the wise learn to channel Jupiter's expansiveness with Saturn's restraint. 3. Mars, the flame of will and conflict. Mars was the planet of fire and iron, of blood and courage. The ancients did not see war as merely violence. It was the outer reflection of an inner battle. Mars governed the will, the power to act, to cut through illusion, to conquer weakness. When Mars dominates without wisdom, he manifests as destruction, rage, and blind ambition. But when guided by higher intelligence, Mars becomes the sacred warrior, the energy that protects truth, defends justice, and drives transformation. In the Hermetic tradition, Mars corresponds to iron, the metal that must be tempered by fire. The initiate was taught to burn away his lower impulses, forging his inner will as the blacksmith tempers his blade. Mars, then, is the energy of purification through struggle. Without conflict, there can be no growth. Without the fire of challenge, the soul remains dormant. 4. The sun, the light of consciousness. At the center of the celestial order shines the sun, the radiant heart of the cosmos. For the ancients, the sun was not just a star. It was the visible face of the divine, the logos incarnate, the soul of the world. The sun governs the principle of consciousness itself. In every person, it represents the divine spark, the will to create, to illuminate, to give life. All other planetary forces orbit it, just as the virtues and vices of man orbit the inner light of awareness. To the Egyptians, Ra was the daily resurrection of life. To the Greeks, Apollo was the bringer of clarity and inspiration. The alchemists saw the sun as gold, pure, incorruptible, the symbol of enlightenment. To align with the sun is to awaken the self, to stand as a radiant center of one's own universe, neither enslaved by emotion nor lost in intellect, but whole. 5. Venus, the harmonizer of love and beauty. If Mars is the sword, Venus is the song. She governs the magnetic principle, the power that attracts, heals, and unites. The ancients saw Venus as the embodiment of divine harmony, the beauty of music, the rhythm of nature, the compassion of the heart. Her influence extended far beyond romance. Venus symbolized the universal force of cohesion, the thread that weaves all dualities into balance. In her glyph, a circle rests atop a cross, representing spirit ruling over matter through love. But Venus's gifts could also deceive. To be lost in beauty without wisdom is to fall into illusion, the seduction of form over essence. That is why the true initiate loved Venus, but did not cling to her. They admired beauty as a reflection of the divine, not as an object of possession. 6. Mercury, the messenger between worlds. Swiftest of all, Mercury darts between the heavens and the underworld, carrying messages of the gods. He is the bridge between opposites, logic and intuition, thought and manifestation, heaven and earth. In every ancient system, Mercury represented the mind. The Greeks knew him as Hermes, the patron of travelers, merchants, and magicians. The Hermeticists saw in him the principle of transformation, the fluid intelligence that can adapt, learn, and transmute. In alchemy, Mercury is quicksilver, neither solid nor liquid, neither purely matter nor spirit. It is the agent of change itself. When Mercury's current flows purely, thought becomes creation. Words become power, and intention becomes reality. But when corrupted, it leads to deceit, confusion, and manipulation. Thus, Mercury teaches discernment, the wisdom to know when to speak and when to remain silent. 7. The moon, the mirror of the soul. Closest to us, yet most mysterious, the moon was humanity's first teacher in the rhythm of time. Her waxing and waning mirrored the cycles of birth, growth, decay, and renewal. To the ancients, she ruled over dreams, emotions, and the unconscious. The moon is the great mirror. It has no light of its own. It reflects the radiance of the sun, just as the mind reflects the light of spirit. She governs the tides, not only of the ocean, but of the human heart. Her pull awakens memory, instinct, and imagination. In ancient initiation, the moon represented the first gate the soul must pass, the mastery of emotion, the taming of illusion, the realization that reflection is not reality. These 7 planetary intelligences were not separate gods competing for dominion, but facets of one cosmic whole. They represented the 7 aspects of the divine mind: the 7 vibrations that shape all matter, thought, and emotion. In the next section, we will journey deeper into the core explanation, part 2, where we'll explore how the ancients saw these 7 forces not merely as symbols, but as actual cosmic currents flowing through the human body, the earth, and even the architecture of temples themselves. If the first half of this teaching describes the gods above, the second half reveals the gods within. For the ancients, the 7 planets were not distant bodies in the night sky. They were the living anatomy of the soul. The macrocosm, the universe, and the microcosm, the human being, were reflections of one another, bound by the same laws. The saying, as above, so below, was not a poetic metaphor. It was the foundation of all ancient science, mysticism, and spiritual practice. Every human being, they taught, is a miniature universe. The same 7 forces that govern the heavens also pulse within us, shaping our thoughts, desires, health, and destiny. To awaken spiritually was to recognize, balance, and ultimately transcend these forces, to harmonize the planets within one's own being. The planetary body, the temple within. Imagine, for a moment, your body as a sacred temple. Each organ, each emotion, each thought vibrates with a planetary resonance. Saturn rules the bones, the structure, endurance, and discipline that hold your form together. Jupiter governs the liver and the expansive forces of growth, digestion, and optimism. Mars fuels the blood and muscles, the will to act, to move, to transform energy into purpose. The Sun governs the heart, the center of consciousness and radiant vitality. Venus blesses the kidneys and the harmonizing forces of pleasure, connection, and inner peace. Mercury rules the lungs and nervous system, the electric currents of thought and communication. The Moon influences the fluids, the womb, and the emotional tides of the soul. To the initiates of the Hermetic and Chaldean traditions, this wasn't mythology, it was medicine. The human body was seen as an astrological instrument, tuned to the rhythms of the cosmos. Healing meant aligning these inner planets so that their harmonies, rather than their conflicts, guided life. The ladder of the soul. In the ancient mysteries of Egypt, and later the Gnostic and Hermetic schools, the 7 planets represented 7 spheres the soul must traverse after death, or during deep states of initiation, to return to the divine source. At birth, it was said, the soul descended from the One through the planetary gates, taking on the qualities of each sphere, the discipline of Saturn, the wisdom of Jupiter, the courage of Mars, the light of the Sun, the beauty of Venus, the intellect of Mercury, and the sensitivity of the Moon. But in doing so, it also fell into the illusion of separation, the belief that it was an individual, isolated being. Spiritual practice then was the reverse journey, the ascent of the soul, in which the initiate learned to purify and balance the energies of each planetary sphere. Through Saturn, the seeker faced and transcended fear, realizing that limitation is the teacher of mastery. Through Jupiter, they embodied wisdom, turning knowledge into benevolence. Through Mars, they learned righteous action without violence, will without ego. Through the Sun, they awakened divine consciousness, the realization of I am. Through Venus, they cultivated universal love, compassion that knows no possession. Through Mercury, they achieved clarity of thought, bridging matter and spirit. Through the Moon, they stilled the emotional waters, transforming reflection into illumination. The final goal was liberation, to rise beyond the planetary spheres entirely and merge with the eternal source, known to the Egyptians as Atum, to the Greeks as the One, and to the Hermetists as Nous, the divine mind. Temples as planetary machines. This cosmic map was not confined to philosophy, it was built into stone. The temples and sacred cities of the ancient world were aligned with planetary geometry, serving as resonant instruments between heaven and earth. At Heliopolis, the great temple of the sun was constructed so that the morning light entered the sanctuary precisely on the equinox. In Babylon, the ziggurat, Etemenenki, the foundation of heaven and earth, was said to mirror the 7 planetary levels of the cosmos, each tier dedicated to one celestial ruler. Even in medieval alchemy, the 7 metals, lead, tin, iron, gold, copper, mercury, and silver, were used in ritual architecture, each one resonating with its planetary counterpart. The ancients believed that when a priest stood within such a temple, he was not simply praying, he was tuning the human soul to the cosmic order. This is why planetary magic, astrology, and sacred architecture were all one science. To them, aligning with a planet was not superstition, it was the practice of harmonizing with the laws of divine intelligence that shaped existence itself. The harmony of the spheres. Perhaps the most profound idea to arise from this planetary worldview came from the Pythagoreans, the music of the spheres. They taught that each planet produced a subtle tone as it moved through the heavens, forming a cosmic symphony inaudible to human ears, but perceivable to the awakened soul. These harmonies were not random. They corresponded to mathematical ratios, musical intervals, and even emotional states. The ancients believed that when one's life fell into disharmony, through greed, ignorance, or excess, it meant one's personal music had fallen out of tune with the celestial orchestra. Through meditation, ethical living, and sacred sound, one could restore resonance with the divine melody. This, they said, was the secret behind enlightenment. Not the escape from the world, but attunement to its deeper rhythm. The planets as initiatory teachers. Ultimately, the 7 planets represented 7 stages of initiation, 7 lessons every soul must master. Discipline, Saturn. Learn to endure, to accept reality as it is. Wisdom, Jupiter. Cultivate faith in the greater design. Courage, Mars. Transform struggle into strength. Self-awareness, Sun. Illuminate the darkness within. Harmony, Venus. Love without attachment. Clarity, Mercury. Perceive truth beyond illusion. Peace, Moon. Rest in stillness and reflection. The initiate who completed these stages was said to have conquered the planets, no longer ruled by their forces, but master of them. Such a soul was described as free from the wheel of the stars. In the next section, we will move from philosophy to practice. You will learn how these ancient teachings can be applied today, how to attune yourself to planetary energy, balance your inner cosmos, and awaken the same power that once guided the priests of Babylon and the sages of Egypt. To the ancients, knowledge of the 7 planets was not simply theoretical, it was a living art. Their temples were built as maps of the heavens, not for decoration, but for transformation. Every ritual, every mantra, every gesture was a means of attunement, a way to bring the macrocosm of the universe into resonance with the microcosm of the self. Even today, though we live in cities lit by artificial suns and measure time by digital clocks, the same 7 planetary currents flow through our lives. They manifest in the cycles of emotion, thought, health, and circumstance. To work consciously with them is to reclaim the forgotten art of spiritual alignment. Step 1. Recognizing planetary energy in your daily life. Each day of the week still carries the vibration of one of the 7 classical planets. The ancients designed their calendars as a reflection of cosmic order, an order we can still access if we live with awareness. Sunday the Sun, a day for clarity, creativity, and renewal. Focus on your inner light, create, meditate, or simply bask in the warmth of life itself. Monday, the Moon, a time for introspection and emotional honesty. Rest, dream, write, and listen to your intuition. Tuesday, Mars, the day of decisive action. Begin difficult tasks, set boundaries, and face challenges with courage. Wednesday, Mercury, the day of communication and thought. Plan, write, study, or express your ideas. Thursday, Jupiter, a day for wisdom and generosity. Teach, share, or expand your understanding of something greater. Friday, Venus, a day of love, harmony, and beauty. Surround yourself with art, music, and meaningful connection. Saturday, Saturn, a day of reflection and discipline. Organize, plan long-term, and release what no longer serves you. This ancient rhythm was meant to align the human psyche with cosmic intelligence, a living dialogue between heaven and earth. When you honor the planetary current of each day, your actions begin to flow in harmony with universal law. Step 2. Meditation on the seven lights. In the Hermetic and esoteric traditions, initiates practiced a daily meditation on the seven planetary energies to cleanse and balance their inner cosmos. You can do this too. Find a quiet place and close your eyes. Visualize yourself standing beneath a vast starry sky. One by one, imagine the seven planetary lights above you. Saturn, a deep indigo light, representing stillness and mastery of time. Jupiter, a royal blue radiance, expanding your wisdom and faith. Mars, a glowing red flame, igniting courage and will. The Sun, a brilliant golden sphere, illuminating the heart. Venus, a gentle emerald or pink glow, opening love and harmony. Mercury, a silver-white current of light, clearing the mind. The Moon, a pearl-like glow, soothing emotions and intuition. Let each sphere descend through your crown, resting for a moment in your heart, then flowing outward through your body. Feel them balancing and harmonizing, each tone contributing to the symphony of your being. When all seven have merged within you, visualize a radiant white light, the sum of all planetary forces, expanding outward. Sit in that silence for a few breaths. This is the still point beyond the planets, the eternal center within you. Step 3. Planetary offerings and sacred habits. Ancient mystics believed that each planet could be honored through a specific form of action or offering, symbolic acts that align the human with the divine principle behind each force. You can create simple modern rituals reflecting the same wisdom. Saturn, clean your home or workspace. Simplify, organize, and discard the unnecessary. This honors discipline and clarity. Jupiter, read a sacred or philosophical text. Share wisdom freely with others. Mars, exercise, move your body, or face a fear directly. Transform energy into willpower. Sun, practice gratitude. Spend time outdoors or create something from your heart. Venus, beautify your surroundings. Cook with care, wear something you love, or speak gently to someone. Mercury, write, learn, or engage in honest dialogue. Moon, rest deeply, dream, or meditate on your emotions. Each act becomes a ritual when performed consciously. You are not worshiping planets. You are awakening the principles they represent within yourself. Step 4. The Alchemy of Balance. In Hermetic alchemy, the seven planets corresponded to the seven metals. The alchemist's work was not merely to transmute lead into gold, but to refine the inner metals of the soul. Each human being begins as a mixture of these seven energies. Some overdeveloped, others asleep. The goal is not suppression, but harmony. Too much Mars leads to anger, too little to weakness. Too much Venus becomes indulgence, too little isolation. Too much Saturn freezes the heart, too little chaos reigns. Balance is achieved through awareness. When you feel one planetary force dominating your life, such as relentless discipline, Saturn, or excessive desire, Venus, invoke its opposite to restore harmony. The ancients would say, the planets are your servants, not your masters. Step 5. Aligning with cosmic rhythm. The more advanced initiates observe the planetary hours, periods throughout the day ruled by specific planets. They began important tasks under favorable influences, believing that action aligned with the right celestial rhythm bore the signature of success. You need not calculate the hours precisely. Simply observe how your own energy shifts throughout the day. The early morning, for instance, often feels solar, fresh, vital, expansive. Evening carries the cooling lunar tone. The fiery mid-afternoon has a Mars-like charge, while the quiet hours before dawn resonate with Mercury's clarity. By noticing these patterns, you begin to live astrologically, not by superstition, but by direct intuition of the living cosmos. Step 6. The Inner Ascent. Once you learn to recognize and balance these seven currents, the next step is transcendence. The ancients said the soul must climb the ladder of the planets to escape the wheel of fate. In meditation, this meant quieting one planetary layer after another. Stillness beyond Saturn, silence beyond Mercury, peace beyond the moon, until only pure awareness remained. This is the true alchemy of the heavens: to discipline without hardness, Saturn; to act without violence, Mars; to think without confusion, Mercury; to love without attachment, Venus; to know without arrogance, Jupiter; to shine without ego, Sun; to reflect without illusion, Moon. When all seven harmonize, the human being becomes a reflection of the divine cosmos, an awakened soul who no longer depends on fate, but creates destiny through consciousness. Step 7. Living as a planetary mirror. Every ancient sage eventually realized that the secret purpose of the seven planets was not domination, but self-knowledge. The cosmos was never external. It was a mirror. The planets ruled the ancient world because they ruled the psyche. Their movements in the sky reflected movements within consciousness itself. To live in harmony with them is to live as the ancients did, awake to the hidden intelligence that breathes through all things. When you understand the planets, you understand yourself, because both are expressions of the same divine pattern. In the next and final section, we will bring all of this together. You will see why the ancients said that to know the seven is to hold the keys of heaven and earth, and how this forgotten wisdom can change not only how you see the stars above, but the infinite universe within. If you followed this far, you've stepped into the very worldview that shaped the ancient mind, the way in which humanity once saw the universe as alive, intelligent, and mirrored within ourselves. The seven classical planets were not just astronomical curiosities. They were archetypal laws of being. To the ancient initiates, understanding them meant understanding how the universe itself breathes, dreams, and transforms. Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon. These seven lights were the alphabet of divine language, the cosmic grammar through which creation was spoken into form. Their interplay was seen in every heartbeat, every birth, every thought, every storm. The ancients did not see separation between the sacred and the mundane, between the heavens and humanity. They saw one vast organism pulsing with order, rhythm, and meaning. The forgotten covenant between heaven and earth. In our modern world, we have mapped the orbits of the planets, but we have forgotten the purpose of their motion. We can predict their paths with mathematical precision, yet we no longer feel their music. We have built telescopes that peer into the farthest galaxies, but have lost the inner vision that perceives the same infinity within the soul. The ancients lived differently. They looked up at the stars not for entertainment or data, but for instruction. The heavens were a sacred text, a cosmic scripture that spoke to the attentive heart. When a priest or philosopher observed the night sky, he wasn't studying distant spheres. He was reading himself. This was the secret of the Hermetic axiom: as above, so below; as within, so without. The planets ruled the ancient world not because they demanded worship, but because they embodied eternal principles, the rhythms by which consciousness organizes itself. When humanity forgot these principles, chaos followed. When they remembered, harmony returned. The path of the modern initiate. To reclaim this wisdom is not to retreat into superstition, but to return to alignment, to awaken the same sensitivity the ancients cultivated. It begins with awareness. When you feel constrained by life, remember Saturn, the teacher of patience and boundaries. When abundance and opportunity surround you, remember Jupiter, the reminder that wisdom, not excess, sustains growth. When conflict arises, remember Mars, the flame that can destroy or purify, depending on how it's wielded. When clarity shines, remember the sun, your own inner light that gives meaning to all things. When love calls, remember Venus, the harmonizer of opposites. When communication falters, remember Mercury, the bridge that unites understanding. And when emotions ebb and flow, remember the moon, the ever-shifting mirror that teaches us to reflect rather than react. In this way, you walk the same path as the ancient sages. Every emotion becomes a message. Every challenge a teacher. Every day a planetary initiation. The real meaning of cosmic freedom. In the deepest mystery schools from Egypt to Greece, from Persia to India, it was said that the soul, bound to the wheel of the seven planets, reincarnates endlessly under their influence. Each life is shaped by their magnetic laws, karma, personality, circumstance, fate, but through wisdom and self-mastery, one could rise beyond the seven. This was the true liberation, the final alchemy. The initiate who harmonized the planetary forces within himself was no longer ruled by them. He became a co-creator, a conscious participant in the divine will. To escape the planets did not mean to flee the world, but to awaken through it. The planets continued to move, but their motions became music, not bondage. Life continued, but now it was understood as a divine performance, the dance of spirit in matter. The seven as mirrors of the one. In the end, all seven planets are but reflections of one eternal principle. They are the seven notes of a single chord, the seven colors refracted from one invisible light. Saturn, the darkness of form, and the sun, the light of awareness, are not opposites. They are the beginning and end of the same divine spectrum. Between them, the five other lights play out the drama of creation, each teaching us how to move from ignorance to illumination. The ancients encoded this truth everywhere, in temples, myths, music, and calendars. The number seven appeared in the seven chakras, the seven metals, the 7 days of the week, the seven heavens of Islam, the seven rays of theosophy, and even the seven virtues and vices of Christian mysticism. It was never mere numerology, it was cosmic anatomy. A final reflection. Look up tonight. The same seven lights that guided kings, prophets, and mystics still shine upon you. They have not changed. Only our relationship to them has. Stand beneath that sky and remember that those wandering stars once ruled the ancient world because they reflected truths that still rule the human heart. They remind us that creation is not random, it is rhythmic, that life is not mechanical, it is meaningful, and that every force of the cosmos, whether harsh as Saturn or gentle as Venus, is ultimately a teacher leading you back to the one who set the heavens in motion. To know the seven is to know yourself. To balance them is to become whole, and to transcend them is to awaken.